Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
I was able to first interview today's guest exactly 3 years ago on the MFG OutLoud podcast that I did with Ray Zaganto. And it quickly became our most popular episode of all the ones that we did. And today's guest is going to share with you his story of going from intern to CEO. Brent Hardman is the CEO of Powell. They manufacture specialized systems for equipment for the chemical processing industry. They've been doing it for more than 50 years. So you might ask, what does a CEO of a company like this have to share with me if I'm an intern or if I'm a leader or CEO? Well, let me tell you what, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. There is a bounty of information and advice that we cover in today's episode. We talk about permission to fail. We talk about resistance. We talk about the journey versus the destination. And he gives some stellar advice for a manufacturer that's listening to this if you are in the C-suite or a leader. And then he also ends with some pretty spectacular advice if you're the intern. So whether or not you're a newbie or you've been doing this for a long time, you're going to learn so much from Brent Hardman of Powell. Everybody, here we grow. Well, folks, I have an old friend with me today, somebody that Ray and I last interviewed in October of 2020. So it's been almost exactly 3 years. And when we had MFG OutLoud, and, you know, I had an observation, Brent, that I have a few more wrinkles since that episode. I think they need to add a Botox filter to
I tell you what, I can't tell from my end. I probably lost quite a bit of my hairline, probably receded back, and I won't even show you the back side of it. That's there's a little bright spot right there. So
a lot of time has passed, and it feels like 10 minutes. Does it for you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, these just life in general, just busy and full, and it just seems like yesterday or just at least last month that we were talking together back then. So
yeah, for sure. Well, and I re-looked at the episode because I have to tell you, in all honesty, yours was the most watched and most popular episode that we ever did.
It just doesn't seem real to me like it would be. But it's cool. It's cool.
It's true.
Yeah, we were pretty excited about it and doing it, and it was a lot of fun. So it was cool that it actually got watched and that you guys got a lot of content out of it. It's cool.
Well, and I think the important thing that really drew people in, I think, is the same thing that will draw them into this episode, is you went from intern to CEO.
Yeah.
Of a company, which I feel like is rare, but it may happen more than we know. And I want this particular episode to be motivating and inspiring to not just the leaders and the trailblazers that tune into this, but the young people who are like, I'm an intern. Wait a minute, this guy's now the CEO? Well, how long did it take? What do I have to do? I didn't even think this was possible. So I know this is going to appeal to a wide range of people. And I had a quick question for you that I think the younger person listening might want to know. Did you wake up one day and you went to college and you said, I'm going to be in manufacturing?
No, actually.
What?
Yeah,
do tell.
I know. Isn't that amazing? No, actually, I had grown up even through high school, and I thought I was going to be an architect. That's what I wanted to be, right? It was that, and when I first went to school after I graduated high school and went to college, that's what I was preparing to do, was go to be an architect. And so no, I did not manufacturing, even though my family kind of came from a manufacturing background. My dad worked at Oldsmobile in Lansing.
Okay.
So I had grown up in that kind of that manufacturers, in the blue collar manufacturer's family. But no, that was not where I thought I was going and thought where I wanted to be. I thought I was going to go design and build houses. That's where I thought I was going to go.
Well, and ironically, instead, you ended up architecting or helping to architect a company.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
cool is
A little
that?
bit different way of doing it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you talked in our last episode, and I think this is important because the reason I'm circling back is I think it affects every manufacturer on the planet at some point or another, is the idea of evolution versus revolution. And the reason that I bring it up is that you and your partners took a giant leap of faith and you bought this company from Dwayne, the previous owner. And like you said, it was like dad giving you this car. And you use the analogy that, like, basically, like, don't fuck it up. Like, take care of the baby. But you and your partners had ideas of, we want to evolve this, and we want to make him proud and the people that have worked here all this time. But it seemed bigger than that. So I called it more of a revolution. And one of the things that I want you to share with the person listening is you always said, ask why throughout the process. Is that something that you're still doing and a fan of? Is like, why are we doing this? Why are we thinking of adopting this? What's important about asking why?
Yeah, we absolutely. I mean, even today, we still push that and praise that when it's done, even when we don't like it. When the immediate answer is where you just want to say, because it's always done that way, and just do it, right? That's just the gut response of what we want to do. But no, we still do that today, and there's it's important. We've always felt that it's important to keep challenging and keep evolving, yourself as you're going through. I think if you are, stagnant in a certain term of not just, who you are and evaluating who you are as a company, as a team, but just even your processes and your products and your services and how you're doing things and how you're looking at it and the markets that you're in. I mean, if that isn't continuously being evaluated and challenged, I can't foresee that would be a road that we'd ever be wanting to go down, that you could ever. It'd be hard to pull out of that if you started going down those roads. I know our business and our industry isn't strong enough to maintain that kind of, security and just maintaining the way that it is. We got to keep pushing in some instances, pushing the envelope with new products and services, but also the way we look at things, the people that we're bringing in, the skill sets that we're bringing in. It's got to be continuously asked, why, even though our gut instinct is just because that's the way we've always done it. It's working well. So yeah, it's challenging and it's hard, and it's a lot of times it's a lot harder than you want it to be, but I think in the end, I would say probably most challenging things as you get through it and after you reflect on it was for the good, right?
Right.
And we've had a lot of good over the last, since you and I have talked over the last 3 years, a lot of challenges and a lot of good. So it's been good. I can't, our team here has been unbelievable for what they've been able to do and keeping us moving forward in the things that we've done. So that's been real exciting to see. As we always got to try to take that moment of reflection and go back, and because if not, you could just get lost in the whirlwind. And so we try to make sure that we're doing that. We try to do it actually on a quarterly basis as much as we can when we meet with leadership teams. We plan for the next quarter, but definitely on the annual, we just all of a sudden just everybody take a time out and just think about where we were. And, and how many whys we've asked since then. And that's really important to do.
Well, and I think an important thing that the previous owner, you said he gave you permission to fail.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very powerful a very powerful freedom and a gift. And I know my buddy in Clean Machine, Brad Robeson, he gives his people permission to fail. Is that something that you're still keeping alive at Powell? Do you feel comfortable? People know they have some room to make a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we do talk about that on all the time about, when we talk about to our management group or even our whole employee base is like, listen, we want you guys to be making the decisions down at your level, right? You have to be making those decisions down there for what it is. It doesn't always have to come up, what I always tell them is like, if I got $1,000, I bet you 99.999% of the time, you guys are making the right decision and we're going to keep moving forward. That fraction of 1% that might not be the right thing to be doing, 99.999% of that time, we can probably self-correct pretty quickly where it's not going to be devastating to anybody in the company, right?
Yeah.
And of course, that's not safety stuff. I'm talking about decision making of what they're doing on their job. So that sort of, that's, and it takes a while. I mean, that'd be one of those things that you would just love to be able to say, and it just automatically sticks on the wall and it starts growing, right? It's got to be a continuous evolution and support, not just from the CEO level, but all the way down through the organization. And we're getting better at that for people asking the why and then making decisions on the fly when they need to make a decision to keep moving on. And, but that's really important to do on that side of things too. Yeah.
Absolutely. So empowering people is key.
Yeah.
And I noticed since 2020, you've embraced digital marketing and marketing in general more than you had before. And I was curious, and this could backfire on me. I have no idea. You could say, hasn't changed a thing, or we haven't had success with it. This is totally off the cuff, but I wanted to find out from you, how has that been going for you?
Yeah, that's been going good. So there's a twofold facet here that we do with our digital marketing, and I will say that the stuff that we learned, I really didn't get keyed in on this until I saw a speaker through my Vistage group called Gear Maxwell.
Yes, he's one of our experts on the platform.
Yeah, so Gear is awesome. He's unbelievable. Love Gear to death. He's like one of those guys that will push you to the edge of your own comfort zone and then a little further in this stuff. I love Gear. So this is where I kind of learned this up front, but it serves us twofold. We kind of do it both on a cultural wise that we spread for what our culture is, who our people are, celebrating our people, right? So we kind of do that not only for employee retention, but also recruiting. Where our business is located in the middle of the Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula, we don't have a lot of customers right here in our area, right? All of our customers are somewhere else, some other state, some other country. So a lot of people don't know what it is that we do here because we don't sell things or do things immediately in the area, right? Mm-hmm. So it helps with that recognition of your brand locally for culture building and community work and things like that we do. So that's one side. The other side is the business, right? So we start doing things like, not only, promoting and spotlighting our people, that especially the ones that are out in front of our clients and the ones that our clients don't even see. So we try to give that overall perspective to the industry and to for our people. But then we talk a little bit about our products. We get into some technical aspects, how you fix this or how you could do that. So it has added another element to our business for sure. I think in some aspects, it's helped streamline our business as far as the communication for our products and services and what we can do. And even in some cases, the technical side of things where clients can watch a video and troubleshoot something on their own without necessarily having to call us. So that side of things has transformed the business, and that sort of communication on two different fronts has two vastly different impacts on our business, and it's all been positive. It's all been positive. So, and we got ideas for new things and how we want to take that even into the future that we haven't quite got to yet, but they're on the list to start tackling some new ways of what we could be doing to even kind of expand that even further. So we're excited. So pay attention to our YouTube and all of our social media stuff. You might see some new things coming out here in the next year or so.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, and a quick question on that, because I get this a lot. Did your sales team give you any resistance to ramping up your marketing, or were they happy about it?
No, they were happy. If anything was probably a roadblock, it was me in some of those instances. You know, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, let me make sure I understand what you're trying to do. So no, they fully embraced it, really kind of taking it over, and it's kind of becoming a thing of their own where in the beginning it was kind of me more pushing it, and now it's kind of just disseminated out and got other, some people is just ingrained in them and they want to go off and do it, and it's great. So last year we unfortunately had one of our head marketing people they left. They chose to move out of the area. So we had somebody else that was already working a full-time job raise their hand and says, I can handle the social media, and I'll just take that. And she's done an unbelievable job at doing that. And, just those sort of things where they like it as this, sometimes it's all, I wouldn't say it's they don't feel like it's a job. It's just like this passion that they have. And it's really cool when it all comes together like that. So, they're still getting their job done, but then they're doing these little side hustle projects for the company. It's kind of fun. So
that's fantastic to hear. And I always say, really good marketing is doing both of those things. So I'm really glad you brought that up. The cultural side, the recruiting side, and then the supporting sales side to make sales easier. And it's happening while your salespeople are sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So I always see it as a very supportive thing. And I'm thrilled that your team has embraced it as well. Because I know there's some salespeople that if they don't feel comfortable with it or they don't understand it, there's some resistance.
Yeah.
And
I've always thought about us trying to get to the spot. I love Darren's story, right, that he talked about, and how he tells that one story where he's sitting in a guy's office and he's looking at his phone and he believes the little guy on his phone more than the live guy sitting right in front of him, right?
Exactly.
And so that story's always stuck with me ever since I heard, Darren tell it, actually, watching one of his videos. So that's always stuck with me. And I think, where, the business that Darren was in, with his trailer company isn't really too much different than what we do. It just, different machine, basically, relatively kind of the same types of industries that we both deal in. But so I could see that happening from us too. If we did it right, we could have a story like Darren's, like, yeah, they're sitting there watching the little guy on the screen or the little person on the screen, even though they're believing that person more than the actual one sitting in front of them. So as soon as we hit that, I'll let you and Darren know. We hit that apex, I'll feel like we kind of made it. So
we'll do a bonus episode.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
And you do have a lot in common with him. And I think it reminds me, I apologize. I've not been, I've had a cold. Kurt Anderson talks about in his book, stop being the best kept secret. And would you say that, you and Darren are in sort of, he's more remote than you are, but you're in a place and your customers are everywhere else.
Yeah.
So if you're not marketing, I feel like, you're whispering. So how's anybody going to know that you exist above and beyond your physical salespeople making a phone call or, meeting someone in person, or, your sales team are only so many people. Yeah. They only have so many hours a day, and they only have, so marketing is that at scale kind of thing.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. And yeah, I would say so. Yeah, we're not quite as remote as what Darren was out there, but in Canada. But we, I would say that what we've done in trying to get are working our way towards having that marketing like success that like Darren saw, is as we're starting to get there, it's made it easier for our salespeople to make those phone calls, to show up at somebody's, maybe their facility, or trying to set up a meeting that they, somebody that they don't really know yet. Simply by reaching out and contacting them and says, hey, listen, just take your time and we'll go watch this video or go see our website or whatever it is. They can almost get an introduction and kind of get a feel for who we are before our salespeople even gets in the door, which a lot of times that icebreaker digitally helps, right?
Yes.
So we've seen some successes there on that side of things where that's helped out. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, and I wanted to talk, if you would share with, this is more for maybe the leaders, owners that are listening to this, what are some of the biggest risks you feel like you've taken, not necessarily just in the last 3 years, but since you've taken over the business? Anything that stands out that you think would bring value to somebody else listening?
I'm trying to back this out where it makes sense a little bit. We've taken business risks. I would say that one of the things that we've done a little bit differently is product development. We've taken a lot more structured and more broader look at products and services that we wouldn't have considered in the past. So, and that might be, something like we offer a service where we can offer essentially data gathering for our process, our chemical processes for our clients, and then they can go back and have dashboards and things like that for seeing how well the process is run, and get reports on maybe how much raw materials they're using and things like that. And so that's, some of those things that we probably wouldn't have done in the past, or, even developing, new instrumentation in our industry is something that we're looking at, and that wouldn't have been done. So around the structure of the R&D, we really have expanded that. And a lot of that comes from asking the early question that you had about asking why, right? Why haven't we done that? Why don't we, asking those questions, having one of our employees ask those questions and then come back through it and start figuring that out as to why we haven't done it. Okay, now we know why we haven't. Why is it a good idea that we should or should not? And then working our way through that process has really helped improve our product development on that side. The other part that was probably the biggest risk, and this is from the very beginning, and I don't remember if I touched on this in the first video or not, but when Dwayne passed away in 2016, he was a huge part of this company, huge part. I mean, we loved him to death. He, would have followed him anywhere, into any war that we needed to go into, and died on the line doing it. But he was a micromanager, right? And he liked to have a very flat organization, and it felt like everybody reported to him, and anybody needed a question answered, they went directly to him. And that's the way he wanted it. And it was great, and he built this company up to a great level and grew it immensely from where he started to where he ended. But when we took over ownership in 2018, we just said, this is not what we want to do, right? We don't want, for one, we have 3 owners now and not 1. But we don't want to run the company that way. So in that, I'd say the biggest risk that we took when we did this was having to, one, fill the huge void that was left behind by Dwayne in all of our psyche, right, of how to do decision-making and how to ask questions and doing all this, but also to build up our culture that was without Dwayne, right, where he was such a big part of it before. So we could have just left everything the same and just marched along, and that was a big risk that we kind of took at a time when we still, owed a lot of when we just bought the company, right? And that was a huge risk to say, okay, we're going to basically reinvent ourselves in the beginning of all this. And that to me was a huge risk that we took, and it's paid dividends for our team since we did that in 2018. And we're still, evolving and trying to get better and, finding our weak spots and all that stuff, and still, getting better at living our culture too. But I'd say that between those two things, so, technically around the R&D side, huge, culturally, because you can destroy a company pretty quick if you screw things up there.
Yeah.
I was on the culture side, was redefining ourselves, but it was something that really desperately needed to do and needed to be done. And we fought our way through it. So, and we're pretty proud of our team that we've put together here and what they've done and been able to accomplish. And, it's amazing every day. Again, back to that reflection, where did we start and where we are now? Well, it's just night and day. It's so good. It's so good. We're so happy.
Well, and would you say there usually the the feeling around change is, what if this doesn't work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you say you guys were more of that mindset, or what if this works so well? Like, holy shit. Like the opposite.
Yeah.
Would you say one was more prevalent, or did you kind of, teeter?
Yeah, it depends on which person you ask.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd be honest with you, in our ownership, I'm the glass is always half full guy, right? So that's the role I play. And so I'm more the optimist about, this is going to work. And if it fails, all right, so what? Let's keep moving, right? And we got something else behind it. And I've got other partners that balance me out really well, that some of them aren't as quite as optimistic on some things as what I am. So in that sense, I've got a really good ownership partnership, if you want to think of it that way, on that, where we balance each other out. And where, in kind of the EOS world, really the visionary and the integrator or implementer. So you kind of have that balance, and you need to have that. And it's worked out pretty well. So we've had to have some negotiations on some things, I'll call it that, where, maybe I wanted to go here and we didn't quite, I had to back off that a little bit, but it's been good. It's been really good. So yeah, we've had some of those, but even then, when we made the decision, I would be lying to you if there wasn't some of those decisions that even myself looking back, so, ooh, maybe that was a little riskier than what we needed to, or, but I do feel that, I would agree with you if there's been a few that says, like, look at what it did, look at what it did. It's awesome. So glad we took that risk.
Would you say to people listening to put your ego in your back pocket when it comes to growing a business? Do you think that gets in people's way?
I think if you are running the business, well, I'll put it this way. I wouldn't want to run a business where if I had my ego out, that it wouldn't have got kicked the crap out of, right? It's tough. And I think we all know people that would struggle in where, egos aren't part of the normal course of the day, right? And just for us, it just didn't work for us. And I couldn't imagine now working in an area or even for a company and working with a team where that was going to be an issue with egos. Yeah. So I think it's imperative that you check the ego at the door, but also we're all human and we bring it in every once in a while. We have to walk sideways through the door every once in a while, right?
Right.
But if you don't have that trust and relationship in your team to kind of give you that poke, this is, you brought some extra stuff in here today and you need to recheck that. If you don't have that, I honestly, I kind of feel sorry for you a little bit, because that's been a big part of, that's what makes great teams great. one of the great teams, is having that. Yep.
Yeah. That extra baggage is going to get in your way.
Yeah. A lot of times it is.
Well, we're getting close to the end, and
Okay.
can you believe it? It goes so
No,
fast.
I thought we were 15 minutes in.
One of your mentors, and I love this man, Phil Sponsler from
Yeah.
Orbit Form.
Yeah.
He says, go slow to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
And you quoted that in our previous episode. And I wondered if you'd share a little bit about that. Do you still feel as motivated by his motto? And you had mentioned that it really helped with building buy-in. So I was thinking, for the person listening, maybe we could talk about that for a minute, that going slow to go fast idea.
Yeah. So, well, I didn't expect that question to come up. So yes, we still do. And I still use that. I do, our COO and myself, we call it couples counseling with Phil Sponsler every month. So we do talk to Phil regularly still, and he comes up with a million different sayings like that. And, but we still do use that, go slow to go fast. Right. And it is to get buy-in. And as I mentioned, even with my partners, right, it's like, okay, yeah, I know you guys feel like this is risky to make this decision. I don't quite feel like it's that risky, but yes, we'll back off of this a little bit and we'll ease into it. And that does make, I'm more of the just jump in the water type of guy, right? Just jump in and just get lakes in Michigan and Memorial Day weekend, just jump in the water. It's ice cold, but just jump in the water and you're in the water, right? Where other people just kind of gradually, I don't know, like the pain of going through this slower, I guess, I don't understand it. But sometimes that's what you got to do to convince other people to get in with you, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, we still practice that all the time. And it's amazing how faster your slow to go fast will get.
Yes.
As you go in. So as you go through a couple projects or whatever it is, goals for the year where you're going slow to go fast, the next time you need to go slow, it won't be as slow. I promise that. It'll get a little faster and it'll get a little easier. You won't have the resistance all the time that you always have. And even if it doesn't end up, if you check your ego at the door, right? And if it doesn't work out, you own it and say, hey, it didn't work out this time, but look at all the stuff we learned. Okay, these are the things that we went through. By the way, this wasn't, it doesn't just bottom line zero. We made no money on it, maybe, for instance. Look at all the lessons that we learned along the way that we're going to take with us for the next time. Right. So as long as you go back and, I would say own your mistake if there was one, and talk about the positives that came out of it, your next time to go slow, to go fast will get a little faster. So we certainly practice that on a regular basis all the time, especially for those that don't like to go quite as fast as what some of us like to go. So it does help to get buy-in a lot. Thanks. Yep.
Well, would you recommend couples counseling or having a mentor or a Vistage group or a mastermind group? Would you highly recommend that to somebody that's in your shoes, or somebody who's being groomed to be in your shoes?
Oh, absolutely. There's not a question in my mind. There is not. I can't even put the value on what we've got. I mean, I'm personally in a Vistage group, but I know that there's other ones out there. I can't even put a value on what my group has, given me in advice. I mean, just to have that peer group where you can just bounce ideas off of, or just learn. I mean, even just sitting there listening to the other issues and problems going on and just making mental notes. It's just, and having that, I would even say to even have that, not only just a sounding board, but a venting board too, It's good to have that, and on that side. So what we've done, so I've been in Vistage over 5 years now. or 5 years. I think I just had my 5-year anniversary actually. So that's been good. The couples counseling with Phil, we've been doing for, I don't think quite a year, but pretty close to a year now. And I think what that is our COO, Joe, and I, we're trying to get that, making sure that our relationship is working out well and getting us more into that visionary and integrator role where we're trying to get Joe to a spot where, he can really be integrator and take that seat over. This is just the start of that as we get in. So Joe's my, he kind of reels me in and fact checks me a lot on some things. And, we need to make sure for the sake of the health of the company that Joe and I's relationship's top notch and, having that, outside influence to help us work through our plans and what we're talking about and issues that we're having, with Phil has really been helpful. So, having those outlets where you can step away from work and do that, kind of stuff is I think is crucial and critical, to be honest with you.
Love that. Well, and to wrap up here, I'm going to put you in the hot seat for 1 second.
Okay.
Would you have like a piece of advice for a manufacturer listening to this that I don't know, maybe comes to your mind quickly that you feel like would help them today? Maybe it's based on your own journey and experience, but somebody who would be at your level, any words of wisdom or something maybe they could take away?
I would say this. I think that, in some instances, I think that my story and how I got here is not necessarily the same as what everybody else's is, right? I think you've got to be realistic, be true to yourself of what your story is and how you got to where you got to, and make sure that you're celebrating that along the way. You've had to have some victories to get to this position at some point in time, right? So celebrate that. Don't forget where you came from, whatever that is, whether it is that you started as an intern or if you came in as a vice president, but celebrate where you come from and how you maybe grown up and been put into that position. And then, my other biggest takeaway for me, that I've had is just celebrating my team, right? I'm just that, maybe that's just the way that I'm wired. I don't know. I feel better about things that I've accomplished with a team and done myself, where I've, have put my effort into it. And, I've done something to help the team out and we've won together as a team. I've always been that way from, even sports in high school. I always, like to be part of a team that we went through a challenge together, whether that's a game or, 2-a-day scrimmages or whatever it was. I like to do that instead of just, accomplishing the stuff on my own. I'm just, so celebrate the team in my aspect of that. So, don't forget where it is that you come from, celebrate your victories, and, celebrate your team, because they're the ones that are helping you get there. So, I guess that doesn't have to apply to manufacturing, but, just in my experiences, those are some big facets that I try not to lose touch with. So.
Nice words to live by. Well, and one last thing, if you were to give a piece of advice to an intern who's listening,
right,
somebody who's just started at the company, any words of wisdom, kind of like looking back at your own, 22-year-old Brent,
mm-hmm.
like what advice would you give?
Be prepared, right? You can show up being prepared. What's the old adage that, you can't control a lot of things, but your attitude you can control, right?
Yeah.
So you can be prepared and you can have a good attitude. And I think as long as you're prepared for the situation, and what I mean by that is, keep your head up about where it is maybe that you want to go or think that where you want to be. And you got to be prepared to, not just for maybe that exact instance, or, be prepared for a meeting. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying be prepared for, if you want to get to here and it takes, maybe education that you got to do here, you got to get a certification or what, you got to be prepared to do those sort of things. Right. And if you got to do those, and I would recommend obviously doing those ahead of time, not at the last minute of what you need to do. You got to be prepared walking in. Right. And then your attitude is everything, and if you're not conscious of that, it can, well, for one, it can impact your team that you're working on or that's working with you. But also it's just people will flock to that, right? If you've got a great attitude coming up, it's infectious and people will flock to you. So control what you can control, be prepared, have a great attitude, while you're there, and, try to take opportunities when they come. That not every intern that's going to sit in any seat is ever going to necessarily be a CEO or even own their company. And that's okay. Everybody's story is different, but the fact is you don't have to think that just because you're an intern that you're never going to be a CEO. You should, if that's what you want to be, do the things that need to be done and be prepared and have a good attitude and take full advantage of the opportunities that are given to you. And if you do those things, then I think it changes your odds in your favor, that you'll accomplish your goals, right? Where you want to be.
And I think also in this, get insta famous quick kind of culture that we have, I think what would be helpful for younger people to understand is this doesn't happen in 10 minutes. And that's okay. That's not a sign of failure. And to also understand that time goes really fast.
Yeah, sure does.
So just because, you want it to happen in a year or 10 minutes, but it's not. But guess what? As people of a certain age, I think you and I could both share with them that it goes way faster than you think.
Yep.
And not to fret, like just to know that, it's not going to drag on forever. It's going to fly by. So,
right. And I think that's where it's important to, where you do celebrate those little wins along the way. Right. And you do celebrate, and it kind of gives you a chance to take pause, and say, okay, we took another step. Right. It took a little while to get here, but it doesn't happen overnight. And in most cases, it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, my journey from here was 22 years roughly, that it took me to get from basically an intern up to CEO role roughly. So it takes a while, and or it can, I guess in that instance it did, but you got to celebrate those little wins, and and it's, you don't know what you don't know, and you got to make sure that all these little experiences build up and give you that knowledge to be more confident sitting in a seat like a CEO seat, right? And managing people and understanding how they are impacted by your decisions and how they're looking to you for leadership and all those sort of things. So, I think that just doesn't happen overnight. You need to evolve into that, and that takes time, and it takes wins and it takes losses to get there. Yeah.
So paying attention to the journey rather than focusing on the destination.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, man, it has been a pleasure. We covered a lot, and I would just suggest to anybody listening that they connect with you maybe on LinkedIn if they haven't already.
Yep.
You are a really cool guy and a wealth of information, and you are active on that platform. So I would tell anybody listening, feel free. Thank you for spending time with me again today, and for bringing so much value and honesty and positivity to everybody listening.
Thanks, Allison. I appreciate you inviting me to come back on and catching up how things are going. So Yeah, it's been great. This is really cool. I appreciate catching up. It's been fun reminiscing a little bit about this stuff. So it's been great.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee we'll have you back. I know this episode is also going to be incredibly popular. And I would just say for you listening, if you are not already, please go and subscribe to this podcast and feel free to leave a review and let other people know that there's value here and it's worth tuning into. And if no one else tells you this week, I want you to know that you are seen and heard and felt and that you matter. So keep doing the important work, and we will see you next time.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.